Wisconsin, and hopefully beyond that. Welcome to any new faces who are here this evening. I appreciate your being here because so many are of the belief that what happens on the local school board, what happens in your county government, what happens in any local office is not that important. And the proof of it is that according to one study, 90% of the people who on November 5th pulled the lever for Donald Trump did not show up. 90% of those Republicans did not show up in February for the primary. And it is certainly our goal that that will not be the case on April 1st. Because the conditions are such that what we could lose on April 1st doesn't come far from what we would have lost had the national presidential election turned out differently. More on that in a little bit. If you haven't already seen those tables, they are all lined with free materials, many from the Heartland Institute, from our own collection, from the John Birch Society. Do pick them up, do share them, pick up enough to share, because that is a way, an easy way, to spread the freedom message further. If you want to be on our email list at the welcome table, there at the entrance you will find a sign-up sheet. It is not necessary for attendance, but you will receive our occasional emails on upcoming programs. Restrooms in this fine facility, a little single one back through the exit door at the back of the hall, or go out into the lobby down the stairs and to your right, and you will find larger facilities there. A little bit more now regarding the April 1st election. Obviously, I'm assuming that you are all going to be there, or have already voted, or intend to vote early. We're not particular fans of early voting, but it is the law, and it is helpful. It directs more of efforts toward those who haven't yet voted. The constitutional amendment for voter identification. You could measure that value of that one several ways. One is, if you look at the people who oppose it, that should be convincing enough that it is necessary. Those who say we already have it in law, that is true, and the legislature could change such a law, and the Supreme Court is aiming to change such a law. So it's crucial to get that passed. Brittany Kinzer for Department of Education. She's no Republican. Neither was Ronald Reagan. And look how that turned out. Everything that we know of that she stands for, recognizing, first of all, that we have a problem with reading and math in Wisconsin. I'm in the school district that boasts of being one of the state's best, but only 60% of the kids can read and do math at grade level. That is not worth bragging about. That's serious stuff. And she's the only one who recognizes it's a problem and has a plan to do something about it. She supports the right of parents in education, that the children belong to them. It is not the bureaucracy or the system that controls the child, and it is the parent. She's the only one who stands for that. She stands for real education standards, not the revised junk that was stuffed down our throat by the current superintendent. So Brittany Kinzer for sure, and then Brad Schimmel, one could talk him out. But all the things that I think most of us sitting here tonight love, Act 10, is going to go away if he does not win. School choice is going to go away. Protection for life is likely to go away. Right to work and a whole bunch of other victories over the last number of years will disappear if his opponent reaches that Supreme Court and they have a clear majority. April 1st is the election. April 2nd, a big event in Kokona, not far from here. the Legislative Joint Committee on Finance has 4 public meetings across the state regarding the new budget. On the day after the election, from 10 o'clock in the morning till 5 in the evening, that committee will meet in Kaukauna at the high school to receive input from the public. If you have input, and if you don't, by all means, try to attend that. If you have input, you might wait hours for your turn, but the Legislative Joint Committee needs to hear from the public. And I hope they hear loud and clear that a $20 billion increase in our state budget is not a good idea. And I know they're committed to that. But what they typically do, the Liberal governor projects the budget here, and so our good Republican friends bring it down to here when it was way down here, and they call that a victory. I think we have to impress on them that any increase is not a victory when the budget is already at $100 billion. And then on this day, I must say, one other item coming up, April 10th, you have a brochure on your table, so I'm not going to say much except, please, give it real consideration. The Wisconsin Conservative Coalition is an umbrella group of several local groups like ours, and Patriots is a part of it. Once a year, we hold a benefit dinner because that's our main source of funding for the Wisconsin Conservative Coalition. It's worth going to just to rub shoulders with 100 or so other conservatives. It's worth going to because the speaker has been on that topic nationally for almost 50 years. He's probably as knowledgeable as anybody about property rights and how there are forces out there to take them from us. You will be much to your advantage to be able to hear him directly and engage in a Q&A with Tom DeWeese. And it's worth going to because the meal prepared, catered in, is going to be quite sumptuous. It's right here in this hall. It costs a little more than going to McDonald's, but on every measure it's superior to going to McDonald's. And I would plead with you, yourself or friends and others, take any brochures at the table regarding that benefit dinner and share them around because we ought to fill this place. Then it was on this day in 1854 that 50 men, 3 women, and a child squeezed themselves into the little white schoolhouse in Ripon in order to discuss, even though the ones there were from various of the several political parties in existence at the time, they were united against slavery. And they decided on that March 20th meeting that there needs to be a new party, one that is founded on the principle of freedom and individual freedom, opposition to slavery. And the backstory is that a few years earlier in 1850, a man in St. Louis, Missouri, purchased a slave, Joshua Glover. For 2 years, Joshua did whatever as a slave he was commanded. He was but one of over 3 million black slaves in America. And in 1852, he figured out a way to escape. We don't know how. He crossed the country and ended up in Wisconsin, which was his intent because he had heard it was a free state. In Racine, he got a job, got a home, and did what free people want to do all over the world: live his life. However, there was at that time also a federal law, the Fugitive Slave Act, which made it a lucrative possibility to discover and capture slaves who had escaped and return them to their owners. Good money could be made doing that. And one evening in his cabin there in Racine, a group of slave catchers forced their way into his house. There was a tussle, bound him, threw him into the back of a wagon, and horsed him up to the jail in Milwaukee. There, citizens of Wisconsin, and the intent was that they would escort him out of jail and back to St. Louis the next day. But a rather raucous crowd gathered, and people opposed to slavery, people not at all thinking they were bound to obey so wicked an act as the Fugitive Slave Act, busted the door down, freed him, and over a 40-day process through the Underground Railroad that snaked its way through Wisconsin toward Canada, he was able to reach freedom. And there, in the freedom of Canada, he again got a job, got a home for himself, married, and lived a life as any free man would desire to do. That was March 20th, 1854. Well, these events were just days before that meeting in the schoolhouse. In 1954, President Dwight David Eisenhower marked that celebration, centennial day of 100 years since the Ripon event, and thought it should be marked in significant ways. So using the telegraph, he sent an impulse. Don't ask me technically to explain how he did that, but that telegraphic impulse lighted a torch in Ripon called the Freedom Flame, and I'm told it has been burning there in Ripon from then until now. It continues to burn. And so this evening we are going to light, not point the torch that's in Ripon, but light a candle of freedom, and the one in, thank you, with good luck we will light the symbolic freedom.
We have a fan up there.
Thank you. And although that is merely symbolic and will burn for about a few hours tonight, it is our hope that that flame of freedom is not merely symbolic in your heart and spirit, that it's an integral part of who you are, and that you will be willing for the rest of your life to do battle for it, because we all know that if each generation does not battle for freedom, it will no longer exist. We were on the cusp of losing it all. The election last November helped turn that around. But that doesn't mean it's done. The election and being involved is only a part. You and I must be part of that battle. Every citizen who loves freedom should be part of that battle. Thank you. Now, we are also, just as the WCC, and I trust that hand is for freedom. We also, the new Patriots, have a lack of resources, financial, and we so deeply appreciate when we pass the hat at these meetings that those who wish and are willing to drop something in, we